Hey everybody, so today I'm going to do something a little different from what I normally do. Um, if you don't know, I've mentioned it maybe once or twice. I don't really talk about it much, but I went to college to be an artist, and the other night I was going through one of the Facebook groups that I'm on, and there was a man posting some drawings done by his 8-year-old son who's just getting into drawing, and he really likes his roosters. So I told him that I would do a drawing video for him to give him some pointers on how to draw roosters. So hopefully this will work. Now, first bit of advice I can give him is the more you look at the roosters on your yard and you handle them and you hold them and you feel them, the better you're going to be able to draw them, because you're going to understand how they're put together. Everything that you can see, you can break down into shapes. And the better you get at breaking it down into shapes, the better you'll understand how to draw them in the long run. So, what we're going to do here is I'm just going to give you kind of a basic rooster that I would draw. And the way I do that is to just do a really fast sketch first. And a really good way to practice this is to get sticks of charcoal, drawing charcoal, and newsprint paper, and go out to the yard and sit down and try to draw the rooster really fast. And you're going to hold your charcoal like this, and you're just going to look at that bird and you're just going to scribble the shape that he looks like. Okay? And what that does is it gets you out of the habit of overthinking what you're trying to draw. And with practice, you'll get really good at getting your proportions. And one of the drills we used to have to do in college was we would take a piece of charcoal like that, and we would have to make a drawing of a person. We had a model there, and we'd have to get that full body position in 30 seconds. Okay? But we're not going to go into that today. I'm just going to give you some ideas on how you can break down a bird into shapes. So, like I said, I'll just do a real fast shape. There's your head. Okay? So what the head is it's an oval and a triangle that's got a little bit of a curve to it. Alright? Now, from the back of the head, this is where the skull hits the spine. From there, you're going to come down like this. And then you're also going to make a curve here. And then basically, these two curves are going to help bring the head to the body. So, don't worry about getting it right the first time. What you're trying to do is you're trying to build a frame. Okay? So what this could be is another big triangle, basically, right here, with a big curve in it. So if you were to continue your line, it'd come clear out here like this, and it'd come like this. And then here you've got another big oval, but on one end you're going to bring it to a point, like a big teardrop or a big almond slice. Okay? And what that's going to make is that's going to make the breast and the wing. So then, you figure, okay, here's the back of the wing. And you're going to come down like this, and you're going to start sweeping the opposite direction. Now, this line here, you're going to bring back up, and you're going to want it to connect with that line. Okay, so think of them marshmallow peeps. You're basically kind of drawing a marshmallow peep right now. Alright, now that gives you the body with the tailbone right here. Now from there, you're going to bring this up, and I like to draw about like that for the tail, so it's not quite a half a circle. It's got kind of a little bit of a pinch to it, about like you're going to draw half of a cartoon heart. Now you got to remember, your tail is all hooked on right here. Okay? So, and every rooster's tail has feathers under the long sickles that are like the feathers on a hen. So, that's what holds up them sickles. So I just come off of here, and I kind of go about here, like a big, basically you're making this shape right here off of it, and then I'll start doing half circles that slightly overlap, and that's going to give you the base of your main tail. Now, come over here, and this is where watching those roosters is going to matter, because your dad's going to tell you all about station and how a bird stands. Station is determined by how far forward or how far back your bird's legs are, and that determines how upright they stand. We're going to bring his leg right about here, and we're going to, basically, if you were to take that wing and figure it into thirds, you're going to bring that thigh right here, just give a little sweep. Okay, now the leg, basically you're gonna kind of go like this, and I'm slowing this down from what I normally sketch, so my proportions aren't even right now, so don't worry about that. Again, you're just making yourself a frame, and then once you make the frame, you can make it, fine tune it to how you want. So here's his leg. Okay, now we're going to bring this leg forward, and a lot of times folks will make that leg too skinny, but you got to think, you got to have a leg big enough for that bird to stand on. Now what I'll do is I'll just come right here and I'll just end that in a circle. And the reason I'll do that is because the bottom of your foot is round. Now I'll come here and I'll bring his foot out, and there's your first toe, your second toe, your third toe. We're going to put him on the corner of the barrel here. And then you're going to have your back toe. Now your back toe is going to line up off of the top of your circle here. Okay? And you don't want your spur too far up, so I always kind of bring it about here. I just kind of figure wherever this toe ends, if I were to draw a half a circle, that's where my spur should be. Okay? Now, that's your framework. From here you can adjust it with an eraser. The erasers on these pencils are not very good. They smudge your drawing, so you're going to want to get a good drawing eraser. And you also want to pay attention to types of pencils, because some pencils are harder to erase than others. If your dad takes you to a Hobby Lobby or an art supply store, there should be someone there that can give you a good rundown and let you try out different pencils for that. Now, so far, he looks kind of out of proportion, doesn't he? Now, let's say because he's only got one leg too, but that's alright. Let's take this bird and we're going to smooth him out here. Here's the top of your head, and give a little bit of a rise right here, and you're going to bring this back, and that's going to be where your nose hole is. Okay? Bring this here. Okay, that's your top beak. Now your bottom beak, you're going to go just slightly under that and just kind of follow that same path. Now, we're going to make this bird straight comb. So, straight comb bird, it's got kind of a square head, and the feathers on the top, they like to kind of come up a little like that. We're going to come back here like this, and then we're going to flare it back out because he's got a big old shiny hackle on him. Now we're going to put his head, there's your little bit of your comb. Put his eye right there. You want him to have a nice big eye, but you don't want it too big. And from there, you're going to come down like this to the throat. Come around like that. And then you got to have this little feather right here that covers up his ear hole. You can put a line right here that follows his jawline. Now, these feathers here on his hackle are going to come forward like this. Bring some back this way. And that's another thing too, is just continually work the entire body. Don't just sit here and completely finish the head and then move on to the next piece, because you're going to be able to correct things more easily if you keep dialing it in and working it in and working it in, and then once you get to where you're ready to color, everything will be exactly where you want it. Now this guy's going to have a big powerful wing on him. So we're going to bring this to the front of your wing here, and you got to remember that it curves out, so that's going to affect how your hackle feathers lay. So you're going to bring them like this, and then you're going to come this way with them. They're going to change position. We're going to kind of come up like that, and we're also going to come back up in here where the throat is, and we're going to put another line here, and that is the hackle feathers on the other side of the throat. Now here's his breast. We're going to trim him up quite a bit, make him a little more tight looking. And you just kind of bring it from here down to the feather. And over here we're going to continue this wing. Now, of course, you got your saddle feathers back here. Well, them saddles start clear up here in the back, and they're little. So you just make little close lines like that, and then as they get further out, you make them a little more prominent. To get closer to the tail, you make them wider. Like that. You bring his wing around like this. Now, your brown reds, they're going to have color in the top of the wing here, and then this is all going to be dark. If it was a gray or a red, you're going to have color down here too. So with your wing, that color patch isn't going to go clear to the edge here usually. If you look at a wing holding your bird, it's going to start as the feathers kind of come around the shoulder. Like if this was your wing, it's not going to be red clear over here. It's going to be red kind of somewhere in here. So we're going to start making some little marks here to indicate that, so that we know when and where to do that. And your wing, when it's folded up, all your feathers are going to kind of follow this V. Okay? So when you're coloring that, just remember you're going to have a lower spot here and it's going to be higher up here. Now, let's get to the tail over here. If you want your bird to have a big fluff tail at the base here, all you got to do there is you draw you a couple of lines like that, and that is the I forgot the term. That is the shaft of the feather, and then you just kind of do that. And then when you get to the point, because the point usually has color, you're just going to make a solid line like that. And you kind of fluffy it up here again, and then you're going to come back in like this. Alright, so there's your fluff at the base of your tail. Now, let's get back in here to these sickles. To make a feather look more realistic, I'll usually put a little break in it, and I'll show that to you here. So this is going to be my initial curve, like this. And I always, on these big feathers, I always draw the shaft in, because that helps with your coloring, and it helps with a lot of other things too. So there's our first big sickle feather. Now what I'll do is when I'm drawing it, I'll put a gap in it here or there, just to make it look like the feather's not perfect, because imperfection is what makes a drawing look real on these animals. Gives it life. So there's your first one. Your second one is going to peek out from under there, and it's going to come here. It's not going to be quite as big. Put my shaft in there again, and you're going to bring another one down here. And I mean, you can go crazy with them. You can make nice long ones. You can make a henny feather rooster out of these, and you're just going to continue this back until you meet your saddles, and then you're going to bring your saddles back here, and you're going to kind of go like this with them so that they overlap the tail. Okay, so now we've got our sickles. Now we got to come back in here, and we got to put in those base tails. And I always do the edge first, and then I come back in and I put in my bottom of the feather, and I try to line it up so that it makes sense that it's connected over here. And then I'll put a shaft in there like that. And it's a big thing you'll find out as you draw is you're going to have a lot of line variance with how you hold your pencils or your charcoal. Fat lines, thin lines, they all have a purpose, and you'll find out where they look best. So now he looks a little bit more like a rooster. Okay. Up here in the eye, I'll give him a little black in there for the eye. I don't have a good eraser on me, or else I'd be cleaning this up. With these sickles, they should always have a matching feather on the opposite side of the bird. And because the bird is not as thin as a piece of paper, that means that even though they're at the same spot on the bird, when you look at him from the side farthest away is going to look lower. So we're going to bring a feather in right here. And I'm not going to put a shaft in this because it's the other side of the feather. And we're going to put one here. We're going to put one here. One here. And as you see, it looks like it's behind these feathers. And it is this feather and this feather are a pair. This feather and this feather are a pair. This feather and this feather are a pair. Okay? Now, show you something with the eye real quick. We're going to go ahead and give him a little more of a comb here. I'm just going to bring that up. So, when you're drawing the eye, you always got to remember that even outside there's going to be a light source, and this is going to come into play with your coloring as you develop your skills also. But the eye always has a reflective light in it. And so what I'll do when I'm drawing an eye is I will not make a full circle inside of the eye socket. I will usually do half circles, and then when I color it, there's going to be a section that I'm going to not color at all. Because that's your eye reflection right there. That's your light reflection. And that makes the animal look more alive. Now let's get down to this leg here. We're going to bring this leg up here a little further. And we're going to, I always think in terms of being a joint. You've got kind of this block here that's the back of the knee. Got a little bit of a curve for the elbow. And bring it down. We're going to bring him and his toes around like this. We're going to bring this one over here a little bit more. Now if you've got his toes spread really wide, you can do a little line right here like that, and that's gives you your webbing. And then this toe is usually you only see a little bit of this toe because it's being blocked by this. And you bring this one back here. You got your spur. We're going to give him something to sit on here, so make it a tree branch. How about that? And that's another thing too is, you know, drawing the rooster's only part of it. You gotta look at whatever the environment is that you're going to put this bird in, because you want it to look believable too. So you gotta study how to draw grass and draw trees and pens and that kind of thing. Now, you've got all kinds of options here with the legs. So he's sitting on this branch right now with this first leg. We could bring one leg up and tuck it and bring his toes clear up here. We could have him have a wing and a leg stretching out back this way. We're not going to get that fancy. We're just going to set his other foot over here. So we're going to give it just a little bit different angle. And I should have grabbed my sharpener before I started this because I just about wore out my pencil tip. So we're going to bring him like this. We're going to hook him. We're going to bring this back one around. And then we're going to bring this thigh over here, because it's going to be shifted forward. Bring that spur out right here. So that's a rough drawing. From there, you can refine it even further, or you can start coloring it in. With your coloring, the biggest thing you're going to want to do is two things. Number one, you're going to want to think of where the light is shining on the bird, because that's going to help inform you on how to make the bird look round. And the other part is, when you're coloring, go the direction of the feathers. So I wouldn't fill in my color this way on the neck, I'd go this way. Alright, on the breast feathers I would go kind of across. On the wings I'm going to come down like that. And always remember that the back leg and the back feathers are always going to be darker because of shadows. And see, up here it'd be lighter because the sun's actually hitting it here. So you can see on these feathers in the back here on the tail, what I'm doing is I'm coming out at a diagonal from the shaft, and as you get better with your shading, you'll realize that that gives you all kinds of opportunities to put a nice shine on those feathers back there, because you can just keep working it and getting darker and lighter. You can put white streamers in there. There's all kinds of things you can do. Now, as you see with this tail, right now it looks kind of all flat. There's no real differentiation between the sickles and the main tail feathers. Well, I'm going to start off here. I'm going to go to these back feathers and make them darker. Okay, so all of a sudden we can see they're behind there. Now here, I'm going to come like this. I'm going to draw a line that goes across those main tail feathers. Like that. Now it looks like these feathers are sitting on top of them, because that's the shadow. But then I'm going to come in and I'm going to color that whole section in and go over that. And by layering it, that pushes them back even further, and then you just keep applying layers. Your bottom half of your feathers are always going to be slightly darker than the top half. The peak of the arc is always going to be slightly lighter than the tips, and you can even, like right here, it's overlapping in the